Welcome, everybody, to Module 1, Lesson 1, the realities of practice ownership, the expectations versus the realities. And I feel like we can get super deep into this. So let's just start it out with expectations versus realities when we're talking about practice ownership. And did you think owning a practice would actually give you more free time?
Yeah, of course. When you first start, you have all of these ambitions, and you think that, owning my own practice, I'm going to have more free time. I can do whatever I want to do. I'm the boss. But the reality of it is, it's the opposite, especially when you first start out. Like your time is taken up, whether you're doing admin stuff, whether you're doing the clinical stuff. It is really challenging to kind of find that free time when you first start out.
So it's kind of like a rhythm, not necessarily balanced. You kind of, one day you're doing this and the next day you're doing that. So it's kind of finding the rhythm that's within your practice.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's not even like one day you're doing something. It's like 1 hour you're doing something, the next minute you're doing something different. And so you have to learn how to wear a bunch of hats, especially early on. And what I think that most of us have this like fallacies of that we're going to go in and we're going to be this super doc, right, clinically. Then we're going to go in and we're going to be this great leader as well. But all of those things take time to figure out where your balance is to excel.
So what would you say is like the most surprising thing that you found out on the business side of the practice?
Yeah, money matters, right? so it is very important because, again, before you become your own business, you get paid by an employer typically, and you think, okay, great. But then when you're on the other side of it, you're having to pay out a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You're not a lot of money's coming in, but a lot of money's going out, especially when you first start out. So that was the biggest surprise to me. I didn't understand managing cash flow very well. There were a couple of big expenses that happened, and granted, I opened right before COVID, so there was a whole different ball game that I was dealing with. But for the most part, if I get back to the meat and potatoes of it, it's you got to manage cash flow.
And I think that's with any kind of business is cash is king. If you got it, you're rolling. If you don't got it, you're struggling.
That's absolutely right. That's actually the number one reason that companies don't make it is because they do have poor cash flow management. And so if you know that that's the number one reason why any company doesn't make it, clearly that's a big deal, right? And so we hear cash is king all the time. But the reality of it is, it is very important and is very true. You've gotta be on top of it and realize that maybe you have to wait a little bit longer to buy this equipment. Maybe you have to do other things to make sure that you still have cash on hand to pay the bills and stuff like that.
So speaking of cash and being able to do the things that you need to, how much money do you realistically need to start your own practice?
Great question. So when I'm thinking about it, this is what, if I were going back and doing it again, I would like to have 6 months of my personal expenses saved up. And the reason why is because you're not making much money when you first start.
Yeah.
And there's nothing more stressful than not feeling like you can pay your bills, right?
True.
So let's not even talk about the practice bills. Let's talk about your life bills, right? Your house, your car, whatever that. So you want to make sure that you have at least about 6 months saved up for that. Then what I would say is you can work in your own working capital through your loan or whatever, and that will help you kind of coast through those first couple of months. But if you can have 3 months of your business expenses saved up as well, then you'll feel really comfortable. You'll be able to make those investments in marketing because that's the first thing that gets cut whenever things are getting scary, right? And so you can keep that going so that you can actually build momentum and grow your business.
So what are some few tips that you would say? I know you give a few, but like how to help make your bills. That way you're not, struggling and like, oh, I might have to cut Deborah's hours this month.
So you got to, there's a couple things, but one thing in that's really important is you want to make sure that before your doors open, you are building a relationship in the community. So day one, that your doors are open, after you do your little soft opening to make sure stuff doesn't fall apart, you want to make sure that you have clients waiting to start treatment with you, right? And once that happens, you're going to get some momentum. And everything about this business is about momentum. So whenever you get a little bit, you can't lose it. You got to keep going and keep building and building. And then the other thing is, I would make sure that you're looking at it from a perspective of building relationships, right?
Yeah.
And those relationships don't happen in one encounter. They have to happen over multiple times where you're meeting with doctors and asking for referrals and saying, hey, I'm the new guy on the block. Give me a chance. Throw me a patient and let me see if I can, meet your expectations. And those things will help immediately for you to get some money into the office.
Yeah, because you want to get patients in, you want to get them started. If you get them started, you get a down payment, you get maybe, a few months in there. Not all of it's going to magically just show up, but it's that trial and error of like, hey, I'm here, I'm not going anywhere. You're not, a fly by night kind of practice. You're actually a part of the community now.
I remember early on in my practice, I had been open for at least a calendar year. And this one patient came in and she was like, well, how do I know you're going to be here next year? And I was like, well, how do you know you're going to be here next year? Right?
Yeah.
But it's like you want to solidify yourself in the community and not be a fly by night type of practice or things like that. But the reality is no one knows what's going to happen. Right?
True.
So you have to position yourself as the authority. You have to position yourself as, you're hungry because you need to get some money in, you need to get patients in the practice, but then also you care about them. And once you start to care about people, then everything kind of works out.
Rapport.
That's right.
Really, all people prefer others that resemble themselves. Match the people, show that you care about them, and then they're going to care about everything else. Let's jump into leadership and team management. What was it like going from the orthodontist to the business leader?
So your whole entire career, you're learning to be an orthodontist, right? Before you start your own business, that's all you're learning. You're not learning to be the leader, right? You may have been learning to be the leader in school and stuff like that, just in general, but for the most part, you're not the person that everybody looks for every answer, right? And so you have to have a mindset shift. You have to say, okay, I am now the leader of this organization, right? And so when you're going into it and hiring and firing and all those type of things, you need to make sure that you hire people that complement you, right? And so what I like to do is I like to self-assess. I think everyone should self-assess before you hire anybody. You figure out what are your strengths and what your weaknesses are, and be true to yourself. It doesn't work if you're not true to yourself, right?
Yeah.
And then you find people that fill the voids that you have. Their strengths are your weaknesses, right? That will help you so much. Like, for instance, I'm not very organized, right? And I think I can wing everything.
Yeah.
But the reality is I can't, and I need someone that's organized. So when I hire somebody, I look for someone who's very organized and can see things to completion, because I'm a good idea guy, but seeing it to completion may be my shortcoming, right?
Yeah.
But that's where they're strong at. So it makes us a unit together, and then we can achieve some stuff.
I love that, because when you get down to it, whatever's going wrong in your business, it's your fault. When it's going right, it's their fault.
Yep.
You're always the stop in the progress, because you're the bottleneck essentially. And being able to own that, and I think that takes maturity to be able to say, hey, that's my bad. Let me figure out what we can do to make this better. And let's jump into how can you go doing that and build trust within your team.
So it takes time. You can't build trust overnight, right? And sometimes you have to go through really difficult times to build that trust. Whether that, in our case, it was really early on that we went through difficult times because of the COVID thing.
Yeah,
right?
it hit,
and so I was, a new business owner. I didn't want to fire these people. So I tried to make ways that we could make it through it.
Yeah.
And so we came together really, really good because of this, because of those difficulties. But if you're not going through a difficult process, I think that just being around one another, being transparent is very important. So if your expectation as the doctor is this, tell them that. Let them know. People want to know how to be better. Most people really want to succeed, and most people really want to do a good job at what they do. So if you can kind of give them the ways of doing that, then they'll do great.
Being humble and being honest. I think that goes a long way.
I agree in everything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the emotional and mental tolls of ownership. What is the hardest part of the first year as an orthodontic practice owner?
I think just expectations versus reality, right? And I thought that I was very confident that I had a something that was different, a unique value proposition, right? I thought that my practice was going to beat all the odds. In 3 months, I was going to be in the black, and then in 6 months, I was going to be profitable. All of those things, and when you don't reach your expectations, sometimes it starts to weigh on you.
Yeah.
And I remember there were times that I got home talking to Brooke, my wife, and I was like tearing up, like, what have I done? Like, I went from making relatively good money, right, to making no money and having so much more stress.
Yeah.
And so, there were multiple times that I did that, where I was like, dude, this stinks. It really does. But you need that support, right, with your spouse or whoever that can help you through those times, whether it's a mentor or someone else, to help you through, because all of us feel that way.
Yeah.
All of us feel super alone when we first open our practice. I remember I had a colleague, and he said, hey, man, just to let you know, when you open your practice, you're going to feel so alone. You're going to feel like you're on an island by yourself. And I was like, oh, no, not me.
I'm different.
Yeah, I'm different. I'm
built
different. and so like a month after, after that initial like excitement, I call him. I'm like, dude, I feel so lonely.
Yeah.
And he's like, I know, man. He said, I'm here for you. And then we kind of talked through it. But the point is, the emotional toll is intense, right? And you're going to have highs and you're going to have lows, and those lows are going to be tough. But if you're working with someone that can help you through those processes, then you'll be okay.
So I think the key that you are given there is, don't just rely on yourself. Have a support network. You had your wife, you had colleagues. You weren't doing this alone. Yeah. And I think that's big, because so many times you go out there and you feel like you're putting on your Superman cape, and it's like, I got this. And then, you get beat up.
Yeah, you do. You really do. You kind of frame that really well. You feel like you're getting beat up.
So how do you deal with, I know you kind of covered this, but how do you deal with stress and long hours?
So that's when you first start. I mean, you're going to bend over backwards for patients. There's not going to be any boundaries, right? There's going to be, matter of fact, there were 2 holidays in my first year, Memorial Day and 4th of July, that I was in my office working with patients.
Wow.
And now I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
But at that point, there's no delineation. You're just trying to survive, right?
Yeah.
And then how I deal with emotional things, or how I deal with just the struggles of the practice, is I have to kind of move away from the practice just a little bit.
Yeah.
And so luckily for me and my wife, we have a construction company that we own as well. So that at least gets my mind off of it for a second, allows me to focus on something else, maybe get some small wins, right? And get some momentum, right? Momentum. I'm going to always talk about the momentum. So you get a little momentum, whether it's, in your practice or somewhere else in your life, and then that helps you come back and kind of make it all work.
There's a time and place to grind, to hustle, to put in those extra hours. But then there's also the time where you're mature enough to know, hey, I need to pump the brakes a little bit. You have to slow down to speed up sometimes.
Yeah. And then also you can have your team take some of the responsibilities off of you. When you're first doing it, you're really reluctant to give extra responsibility to someone, because you think that you can do it better than everybody else.
Yeah.
And I think that that's one of the biggest fallacies that any true leader has, if they believe that they're the only one that can do it. That means that your training is not up to par, right? That means you don't have enough trust in your team. That means that you can't grow like that, right? So it's self-limiting. So all of those things together are really important in your first year.
Awesome. Well, there you go. That is our first lesson. Make sure to check out lesson 2.